The best films aren't the ones that give you what you want. They're the ones that give you something you didn't actually know you wanted. There's a great scene in Blade Runner 2049 involving a robot threesome. Now I know what I want. Blade Runner 2049 is directed by Denis Villeneuve and stars Ryan Gosling, Harrison Ford, Robin Wright, and Jared Leto. That's about it for the names you would recognize, or at least that I recognized. And it is the sequel to the seminal, defining masterpiece that is Ridley Scott's 1982 Blade Runner. Just before I turned on the camera, I was checking out Mark Kermode's review, which is something I don't like to do, generally, to get other people's opinions before I sort of express my own. That's something I generally like to do afterwards, but he talked about the fact that within half an hour into the film, he expressed this huge sigh of relief that, thank God, the film's actually good. And that very much echoes my entire sentiment surrounding the film. It took me much longer than that, actually. It took me the entirety of the 2 hours and 45 minutes of the film's runtime and probably the ride home before I could actually admit to myself that I very much enjoyed the film and I thought that Blade Runner 2049 was actually great. And the reason that I came into this film so down on it initially, that I really didn't anticipate much from the Blade Runner sequel, was essentially because I don't like Denis Villeneuve's filmography at all. To me, it ranges from okay-ish in Arrival, which I think there's a great 30-minute stretch in there, but not much else, to the downright loathsome and absolute garbage when it comes to his output that he did when he was in Quebec, especially Incendie and Polytechnique. And so during the entirety of the film, I really had, my defenses were up, my guard was up. Just every scene I was thinking to myself, is this the moment where I hate the film? Is this the moment where I hate the film? And that moment never came. And so immediately, well, not immediately, but when I came home, my first thought was, damn, that was a great film, and I'm so glad that I enjoyed it, and I actually want to see it again to actually enjoy it more on a second viewing and actually bathe in the joy that is the fact that the 35-year-in-the-making Blade Runner sequel is actually a good, if not a great film. If there's one stroke of genius in the new Blade Runner film, it's the fact that it manages to avoid the whole chosen one, messiah complex that just about every sci-fi movie under the sun chooses to go with. Whether it's Star Wars or The Matrix or just about any other film that's made nowadays, every plot of every major Hollywood film has to have the central character essentially be a Jesus-like figure, where he is chosen, where he is special, and he alone has the ability to change the destiny or the fate of the world. And that's a very sort of ancient Greek hero-like, Greek myth sort of way of telling a story, but what that does is that also sort of takes away from every other character in the world you create, because they're essentially just pawns in a larger structure that is already defined. And what it does is, in many ways, it completely annihilates any chance of free will that any character may have, because everything is foretold in scripture, in destiny, in fate. And it's just destiny and plot advancing hand in hand to forward the story of the main character. I understand why people do it. It's very efficient. I mean, it's worked for 3,000 or 4,000 years, and you know, when you've got somebody like Luke Skywalker or Rey in the new Star Wars films, they're very relatable, they're, you know, well written, and they're played by very charismatic actors. And the fact that on top of that you add something that, about them that gives them powers, that gives them special abilities, you know, it sort of plays with that. It sort of plays with this power fantasy that we as a spectator can have, that not only do we relate to this person for who they are as a human being, but, you know, it also plays into that fantasy that we have, that we're special, that what we do can have an impact, that we are destined to greater things. And like I said, Blade Runner totally avoids any of that. And one of the great twists, I think, of the screenplay is that it leads you down the path to believing that that's where it's going. It sort of pulls the rug out from under you and totally goes against that. It basically tells the main character that he's not special, that he's not a god of any sorts. You know, he's not like Wonder Woman, who is not just any Amazon. She is also the daughter of Zeus, and so she is destined to go and save humanity. I mentioned Wonder Woman because I just saw it very recently. But the Blade Runner tells the main character that despite the fact that he's not special, he's allowed to believe that he's special. That's what everybody wants to believe, and that doesn't negate the fact that he can play a part in an uprising, in social change, in this grand experiment that is humanity. And that makes the Blade Runner script just about smarter than any Hollywood scripts produced nowadays. Everybody's been raving about the visuals, about how beautiful the movie is, and I'm not going to elaborate further. It's gorgeous. It shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. I mean, Roger Deakins could just about shoot his holidays with an iPhone, and it would be drop dead gorgeous. The man is a genius. I do want to applaud the set design and the art department because I think they really put their all into the film, and what they've done is absolutely breathtaking. They've absolutely taken everything that was special about the original Blade Runner and not only expanded on it and not only sort of given homage to it brilliantly, but also they've really made it their own. The original Blade Runner was very much about city landscapes and crazy light patterns and smog, the endless giant urban sprawl. That's still very much present in the new Blade Runner, but there are a great many number of scenes that take place outside of the city, that take place in what you would call the countryside, but which is this devastated wasteland that is full of dead trees and dirt and dust. There's a great sort of organic texture to the image throughout the film, which is both in part obviously Deakins, but also I think the art department that did just a tremendous job. To see all this devastated wasteland, these dumps, in one sequence as Ryan Gosling slowly paces around a post-apocalyptic, devastated Las Vegas in search for Harrison Ford. We already know he's looking for Deckard. That was kind of spoiled by the marketing of the film, which is too bad because I think that scene would have been so effective had we not already known who he was looking for. But as I was watching that scene, that really plays out over a long stretch of time. The pacing of that scene and of the entire film in general is, as with the original Blade Runner, very slow and methodical and really antithetical to just about everything that is being made in the Hollywood blockbuster space these days. I was getting a huge Tarkovsky stalker vibe. It really reminded me of the Russian filmmaker Andrei Tarkovsky, which was both shocking and delightful because I never thought I'd be mentioning Stalker while discussing a $150 million huge blockbuster franchise film. But hats off to Denis Villeneuve because he absolutely pulled off what I thought was impossible, especially coming from a filmmaker that I had very much dismissed in the past. And maybe you'll allow me this pretty dodgy analogy, but watching Ryan Gosling wandering around the wasteland, wondering if he's special, if he has a soul, if he can capture any element of humanity, when he is himself, it's told in the very beginning of the film, a replicant, so like a robotic android, an artificial creation made with the best possible technology. I sort of saw that as the film itself, or maybe Denis Villeneuve, the director, questioning his own capacity to actually make something special and live up to the original, which is very much one of the most important sci-fi films in the history of filmmaking. There definitely is a pre and a post Blade Runner world, And it is absolutely evident from the film that Villeneuve loves the original film as much as anybody in the audience does, but also that he understands it, that he respects it, and I think more importantly that he knew what to take from it and what to make his own and not just emulate something that worked in the past and go against this much too prevalent trend nowadays, which is to essentially remake films that people liked when they were kids and solely rely on nostalgia and feeding people what they want and what they loved and not necessarily offering them something new. Star Wars The Force Awakens being the perfect example of that. So hats off to everybody who worked on the film. I think it is a quite brilliant work of art, and it's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. There's a lot of clunky dialogue in there. There's some directorial choices that I could have done without, especially sort of these flashbacks, not really flashback scenes, but when something important is revealed to us, you sort of get, you sort of edit back to images that you had seen before. I really could have done without that. The ending is in no way as iconic, I think, as the original Blade Runner, and the bad guy is nowhere near as sort of charismatic and iconic again as Roy Batty, played by Rutger Hauer in the original Blade Runner. But then again, I think that that's kind of an impossible task. That doesn't mean the ending isn't actually quite masterfully done. It does show a lot of confidence in both Villeneuve's own filmmaking, in the acting, and just in the spectator for not giving us what is the norm in every sort of film of this size, which is the giant action set piece, but really keeping it relatively small and in that very simple way, again, being very tonally and atmospherically in line with what Blade Runner is all about. So the fact that I can sit here and rave about how great the Blade Runner sequel is nothing short of a little miracle. And to reference Sapper Morton in the film played by Dave Bautista, maybe that makes me just that much more human.